Let's talk about Gary Gensler of the SEC, who recently came out and said only Bitcoin, I think, is not a security. And we can talk about that. SEC is an interesting entity. I think it was born out of the stock market crash of 29. When I went to Wall Street, I had to get my Series 63 and my Series 7 exams. I had to get fingerprinted. I had to take them, and that way I could be a licensed broker-dealer. I started watching Gary's course at MIT, Sloan School of Management. I watched 24 hours of him teaching blockchain back in 2018 when I think he was CFTC chairman. I'm not quite sure what he was then. Yeah. But I started really liking Gary because Gary's really smart and he understands all these blockchain protocols really well. And it made me sad to see that a guy like that would say stable coins are the poker chips of the Wild West. What do you make of Gary, the SEC, cryptos, the future?
Some people hate Gary because he's not very positive for their coins. Ripple would be the prime example. And of course, those investors got railroaded because as we were going into a bull market, that's when the lawsuit came about from SEC versus Ripple, and it pretty much tanked that whole project instead of going up. So I can understand why people are really ticked off. They're saying, hey, you're here to protect the consumer. I'm the consumer. I just lost a lot of money. What are you doing? So I can see there on that side. I also watched Gary speak at MIT. There's YouTube videos, you can check it out. I even did a video on it. I thought it was fantastic that somebody who really understood crypto could come in and be a part of the SEC and also previously of the CFTC, and then maybe have some influence. The problem is that he took a hardline stance and he said, no, we're going to really sharply regulate. And when I talk about regulation, it's a little goes a long way. Unfortunately, with Gary, that everything is a security besides Bitcoin. And this was just this week, I think, that he was on, I think it was MSNBC, and he said, I will say that Bitcoin is a commodity. That's the only one I will call a commodity. Everything else, we are just assume that it is a security. So, and then I have to ask you, Brian, when he talked about stable coins being the poker chips, the wild, wild west, how far off was he? I'm just asking you because.
Well, but is USD, but I mean, UST wasn't really around then, but is USDC a poker chip of the Wild West? I don't think that's correct, is it?
No, they're not all poker chips, but I mean, like even your Justin Sun who was on here. Yeah, I mean, they have their own stable coin.
They do.
And it looks like it's pertaining to PEG. There is some on-chain data analysis that might take a look at who has minted all those coins and which wallets they're actually in. But that's not for me to really go into this video. So when I take a look at what Gary's trying to do, sometimes I don't think we're all evil. I think at some point he really is trying to say, we really should protect these investors because a lot of people lost their money, and they're going to use this prime example of what happened with Luna to really railroad and really push in their agenda. And can you blame them? Because even people in crypto who were anti-regulation, now all of a sudden like, we need a little bit of regulation. And again, I think it's coming anyhow. And I think your question beforehand was, will stablecoin regulation come in by the end of the year? I don't know if Congress can pass anything that fast. It seems like they can talk about it and have committees, but to actually get a law passed is like an act of God these days. And especially with midterms coming up, I don't really see that really getting pushed through. I could be wrong, but I hope I am, but we'll see. But I think that regulation will come pretty fast and furious, especially to get us to the next level. Is this bad? No. I think this is where we have to be. And then here's another question. If Gary says Bitcoin is a commodity, fine. And then he calls everything else a security. Now everything has to come in. Does that affect the people who are buying the securities? We do this all the time. We buy securities. It's on Robinhood. We get equities. We buy stocks. The big problem it'll be for is those exchanges where they have to actually put everything in, all the paperwork, and say, now we're going to register for securities. And that's why I talked about we need to have a recession, because a lot of these projects will just go away or get absorbed. So I think it all kind of comes together. I think we actually need that.
Yeah, I understand Gary has a difficult job. He's also very underfunded in what he does, and they can only bring a few cases when they bring them. He is basically a politician as well. And so he kind of has to use a blunt instrument to try to affect the most people in a positive way. So, Gary could make sure my mom doesn't buy the wrong stablecoin by rattling his saber and saying, don't do this. So I get it. I just also don't know if it's the best thing for innovation in the crypto space.
No.
So
yeah, you're right. For innovation, you're 100% right. It's going to stifle innovation. It's going to be a problem. And just like the different projects that were started in the US of A, they're going to go to other countries that are a little more reliable as far as what they can do. And unfortunately, America will be left in the dust for innovation in crypto and digital assets for some time.
So that's a prediction. It will be left in the dust.
Not totally left in the dust. At some point, we're going to have to. They'll get regulation. We'll know where they're at. It's just like tax laws, right? If you knew exactly what was taxed, then you'd know exactly what not to do and what to do. So it's the same thing, I think, with these projects. Once they figure out, well, what's a currency? Well, that's from the OCC. What's a commodity? Well, that's under the CFTC jurisdiction. What's a security? That's the SEC. Now we know exactly what it is. We know what the criteria for a stablecoin is. We know what these products have. Let's just do it this way, and then we can innovate. The problem is that's not going to happen anytime soon. So a lot of these products just go out. And there's different products I'd like to be a part of. I think a lot of people that are watching the show would like to be part of, but if you're in the United States, you can't.